Hey y'all, I hope everything has been going well. So it's been a couple of weeks since I did a video, and I thought it was about time I did one. I really need to start doing these a little more frequently. Let's see what happens. But let's start with this one here. So I've been talking a lot lately about trying to change my business focus. You know, I mention all the time that I'm a healthcare finance consultant, and that sometimes it's a little difficult trying to market what I do to hospitals. Well, that's a partial lie. It's not sometimes difficult, it's always difficult. It's difficult for a couple of different reasons. One reason is, and this might not necessarily sound like a small number, but there's about 5,500 listed hospitals in the nation. And that sounds like a big number, but it's really not. When you first think of the fact that there's, how many billion? What do we have? 333 million people in the country. So 5,000 really isn't that big. And individual hospitals does not necessarily mean they're not part of systems. There are some hospital systems in this country that are, 20, 30 hospitals. I think there's one that's like 65 different hospitals. That counts as 65 hospitals, but it's actually one system. And if you're not really sure who to contact, then you're pretty much out of luck. The same kind of thing happens in a state like New York, which doesn't really allow hospital systems per se, but there are hospital systems. There are some who, they have kind of affiliation agreement. So it's not really like true ownership, but it's affiliation. So what happens is you could have 3 or 4 hospitals that decide we're all going to work together, but we're going to have one corporate board and everyone is going to, be over everything else. And we're going to have certain officers at these different hospitals, but they're not going to have the authority to hire someone like me. So that's number one. Number two, I mainly do what's called charge master work, or patient accounting, or billing, revenue cycle, all these different things. And the people who I need to talk to that can hire me, one, won't talk to me. It's hard to get through. You can't get gatekeeper, through the gatekeeper, or you leave messages that no one's ever going to return. And the second half of that is they don't understand what it is I do. Not necessarily their fault, because, a lot of these guys come in, and I use guys, and I both mean both men and women. They come in without true healthcare backgrounds. They may have got a degree in healthcare, but they come in with MBAs and different things like that. They know accounting, but they don't know the rest of it. And even some of those people who have been in healthcare for 20, 25 years don't know all the nuances of it. That's just the reality. So it's difficult getting through that. So after a conversation with a guy on Twitter, a local, guy who lives here, I've never met him, but we were talking on Twitter, and he got me thinking about it. I said, I'm always beating my head against the wall. The overwhelming majority of projects that I've had in the 14 years I've been in business have been third party. In essence, someone else has found out about it, contacted me to see if I was available. Hey, yeah, I'm available, and there you go. So those have paid really well. They don't come all the time, so I need something else to kind of get me going. So I started thinking about this, and I started thinking about the topic of influence. And influence is kind of a big deal. I talked about it often enough. For a couple of years ago, I talked about it a lot. And I'm starting to think about it more seriously again, because I have almost no local influence. And truth of the matter is, I mentioned those 5,500 hospitals that kind of start to shrink. Well, I live in a town of 240,000 people, the surrounding area. And I'm in New York State. We got like 18 million people in this state, and that's just this state. And one of the things I want to do is, I always said when I grow up, I want to do speaking engagements. I want to travel around the country doing speaking engagements. I really don't want to leave the country. If someone pays enough money, I'll go, but in general, I don't want to go. Sorry, Canada, you kind of count. Although my wife's still trying to get me to go to Toronto. I don't know why. Maybe it's kind of cool. So anyway, we get back to this thing about influence. And I have no real influence locally. A lot of people don't know who I am because most of my work has been out of town. But when you think about influence, you're not necessarily thinking about power. At least I don't. I basically look at influence as one of these kinds of things where the more influential you are, or the more influence you have, it helps to affect your income. Because if you have influence, that means people want to work with you. And if people want to work with you, people want to pay you. So it affects that. it does affect authority in some ways. You know, people will value your opinion a little bit more if you have, you know, an opinion about something, or they want to know, well, what does Mitch think about this? You know, they value your opinion if you have some kind of influence. It affects your popularity. I mean, my goodness, if you walk out into a room and people start applauding, or you have people who want to come talk to you, that's not necessarily so bad, unless you're one of those people who wants to run away from that all the time. But, you know, if you're influential, that's just one of those kind of things that happens. You don't have to really go out of your way to try to meet a lot of people. Influence definitely helps your self-esteem. You know, when you are self-assured and you're strong and you feel really good, you know, that's self-esteem. And if you're influential, or if you have some kind of influence, it does. Now, some people, I'm not going to mention any names here, have a little bit too much self-esteem and think way too much of themselves. And I'm not looking for that. I don't want to think that I have some kind of power over people to walk in a room and say, do you know who I am? I really don't look for anything like that. But who doesn't want to necessarily feel better about themselves? And truthfully, influence affects everything. It really does. It doesn't matter what you do. For instance, if you go to the same restaurant all the time, people get to know you. And when they know you, you get things. Don't believe me? A few years ago, I was going to this one restaurant 2 or 3 times a week. It was a local restaurant. The people got to know me. I got to know everyone there. Sometimes, if the owner was there, I got free meals, or I'd get free dessert. You know, I'm not one of those guys who will turn down free dessert or free meals all that often, especially when I'm going to the same restaurant all the time. So, that's the thing about influence. You can do a lot of things. So, in trying to determine how I could get more influence locally, and not necessarily just locally, but online, because let's face the fact here, a lot of the things that I can do from home. I can do with people all over the world, or at least all over the country. I can create packages. I can create programs. I can create products. Because I have. If you go to my business site, ttmitchellconsulting.com, and you click on the tab that says products, you will see I have created products. I've written books. I've written a training manual for leadership. I've written an evaluation manual. I've written a book on SEO. I mean, I've created stuff. And I plan on creating more stuff. Stuff that I can sell online, programs that I can take on the road, you know, do locally and then take on the road and do whatever. I can talk about stress management and all different kinds of things. And that's now the point I'm trying to get to here. Over this week, and today is the last day that it's happening as far as my blog is concerned, but over this week, I basically had 15 blog posts spread out among 4 blogs talking about this idea of mine of creating programs and creating products. And I'm kind of proficient in a lot of things. I think everyone is when they really sit down and think about it. But a lot of people don't like to sit down and think about things. As a matter of fact, most people I talk to say, I'm no good at anything. I can't do this. I don't know how to do that. Well, let's think about it. You probably do. You just don't necessarily think of it as anything special. And I have, because I think about these things all the time. You have to know how to reinvent yourself, especially when you work for yourself. So I came up with basically 9 categories, but within a couple of those categories, I said some specific things. And I put it out on the blogs to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to put this message out to different groups of my blogs, because each one addresses different types of people, saying, look, I'm going to create these things regardless, but I'm going to give you an opportunity. What would you like me to create first, and how would you like it delivered? And I've been getting some feedback. I haven't got tons and tons, because one of the things I said is that if I got 5 subjects eventually who want the exact same thing 5 times and want it delivered the exact same way 5 times, that was the thing I was going to create first. And whatever I created, I was going to give a free one away to somebody. And if I got 25 of these, then I was going to give away 2 more after that. Well, like most things, whenever you try to put out a survey, you don't get tons of people, but I've gotten some responses. And that has been kind of enlightening, and it's been fun. And a couple of the responses kind of shocked me, because they threw in something that I hadn't really thought of as far as a way to deliver it where I could still make money if you know, because that's really the intention. The intention is to kind of create the second side of my career and work on that more. And if something happens where there's a consulting contract for me to go somewhere, whatever, you know what, let the third parties do that. They seem to be able to break through where I can't. So anyway, I just wanted to throw these things out there in this video, and I want to say this up front. If you guys send an email, don't leave the message on the video, although you can. I mean, it'll count, but it's better if you send me an email to mitch@imjustsharing.com. That's one of my blogs. Is I'm Just Sharing, and I just decided to pick that email. It separates it from the business email and all this other kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to throw out the categories here to you just to, you know, get them out there, and you can make your decision. So I'm taking these in the order of one of the blog posts that I put it on, so that, you know, it kind of shows you that I don't know what's showing it. It just shows you what I think I'm good at. So let's start with the topic of motivation. And under motivation, I had two basic ideas. One is a thing that talks about how do you motivate yourself, and then the second one is motivating others. This is actually two separate programs, so I just put it out there. Leadership. Do you want to learn how to be a better leader, or do you want to learn how to train others to be a better leader? Revenue cycle. So now I'm talking about healthcare, hospital. I mean, this is really one of my strong points. Medical billing techniques. And this is hospital medical billing. It's not going to one of those local college things where they teach everybody physician billing, but they don't tell them that. This is hospital billing techniques. Understanding the charge master. This is the thing I'm known for, that CFOs pretty much have no idea what that is. And understanding the revenue cycle. This is the entire thing, you know, of how you create revenue and how do you increase revenue based on what's already existing. It takes some charge master principles into account, but it takes it a lot further. Now, diversity. Diversity's out there on its own. I can talk about diversity. I've done diversity training. I've done customer service training. And under customer service, it's either how to provide good customer service or how do you train others to be good at customer service. Then we have self-employment. My goodness, I've been self-employed for 14 years. There's a lot that I have learned. And on my business blog, I have talked all these years. I think I did one on my 10th anniversary about business tips. I did one on the 13th anniversary. I did one this year on my 14th anniversary. I put out a blog post talking about business tips last year for the 13th. I like the number 13. So that's something I can talk about. Then we talk about blogging. Well, my goodness, I have 5 blogs now. I've had some other blogs. I've written for tons of other blogs. So let's talk about blogging. I did a presentation locally years ago on the topic of business blogging. The room was packed. So I can put together a full package on business blogging or blogging for money. This is not one of those how you make money kinds of things. I'm not going to teach you all of that. I may mention it here and there, but I mean this whole concept of blogging for money. How to write blogs. I mean, really. If you can write 5 blogs, and like I said, I still write for other people, and I've written for tons of blogs over the years, that's something I know about. And article writing for others. Because when you're writing for others, sometimes it's a different thing than when you're writing for yourself. Now, let's talk about social media. On I'm Just Sharing, on my I'm Just Sharing blog, if you look in the top left, the very first thing I have up there is something called SEO, your business, let's see, social media, SEO, and your business. And I did that a couple of years ago with someone else, but she helped to run the software in the background, and I did the program. So this is something I know a little bit about, social media. It's not keeping up with all the new stuff, so to speak. You know, I've heard of some of it. I still have no idea what Meerkat is. I will figure that out one day. So, social media. The benefits and dangers of social media. So, this is more related to business than it is for, you know, regular folks who just want to see, you know, should I be on Facebook or should I be on Twitter, whatever. But you know what? It could be for those folks as well. Social media marketing tips. Definitely something I know about. And then YouTube and video basics, which, strangely enough, this is what's leading the vote right now. More people want to know a little bit more about YouTube and video basics. Hey, I'm putting out a video. I've got a bunch of videos. I think I'm close to 200 videos total. So maybe I know a little bit about something, but that seems to be the leader right now. So we have one last one, which is personal budgeting. I have not ever really talked about that in any of my videos on either channel. But I have had clients where I actually go to their homes and I teach them how to set up a budget. I've actually gone through their records and helped them to figure things out, see where they stood financially and whatever. My biggest success is one of my friends who, when I started her budget, she was 34 cents in the hole. I mean, what do you do? But I put her, you know, we figured everything out, saw where her bills were, and now she's got close to $10,000 in the bank. And this is over the course of a bunch of years, but she's also taken money out of that and paid off different things here and there, so we've still been able to get her $10,000 in the bank. If you don't think that's anything, let me just ask you, how many of you folks have $10,000 just basically sitting there in the bank? I'm just saying. So, it's those topics, and then here's the methods of delivery for those things. I can create it as a Udemy course. I'm now familiar with Udemy because my friend Melanie Hall gave me a free coupon to check out her course, and I found that kind of fascinating, so I can do something like that. I can do a live seminar. Now, locally that works out well because, you know, I live here, or, you know, pretty close to the area. I could go to Rochester, Buffalo, or something like that. But live probably wouldn't necessarily work for everybody. Maybe there's a way that you can do it on Skype or Google+. I'd have to kind of figure that out. I could write a book, which works for some people, but I'm thinking book should probably go way down on the list. I can do a webinar. And there's lots of different ways that one can do a webinar. I can do it as an email course. And this is interesting because there's been some people, the biggest request I've had so far has been, could I do it via YouTube videos? And I said, wow, that's different. I had to think about that one for a while, but it turns out you can do private videos. I had to figure out how do you share private videos so that, you know, the specific people who are paying for it can get it. Well, I now know how to do that. So YouTube now comes into that, and now you tie that in kind of with an email course. And the basic difference is that an email course basically says, okay, I send you something once a week so you don't feel overwhelmed by getting it all at once. Or, as a YouTube course, I send you everything, which means I send you materials as well, and then you go through it all whenever you want to. I could do podcasts. And some of these things you can definitely do with podcasts. Some of them you're going to want to look at some things. But it doesn't mean I can't put files together and send them to you. And the last one is one-on-one training. I actually have someone who said that he'd rather have it as a one-on-one training. One-on-one training basically would say Skype or Google Plus Hangout. I wouldn't want to do the phone. And actually, he turns out he's in Australia. I'm certainly not doing the phone. But that now starts to move into the realm of coaching. It's not necessarily coaching. There's leadership coaching if you want to learn how to be a better leader. I do leadership coaching. But in general, for a course, you know, that probably is going to cost a lot because that's going to take a lot more time for me to do. So anyway, I've put those things out there. I will put them down below this video in case you care to see any of that. But like I said, overall, it is my intention to create products for every single one of these things at some point. How they will be delivered, if I don't get the votes for a certain thing, I'm going to create them however I want to. And that's not necessarily such a bad thing. You know, I like to have some flexibility in how I want to do it. So there you go. So let me know what you think. Is this a little ambitious? Is it not ambitious enough? Are some of you wondering, wait, so what are you going to do with the healthcare thing? Y'all don't care about that. I know you don't care. But let me know. And please, share the video. Vote on the video. Like the video. Don't like the video. But if you like it, share it. Say something. Just, you know, help me get the word out. This is Mitch Mitchell, your humble, good friend, whose glasses are now letting me see my eyes because earlier everything was fuzzed up. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will catch up with you next time.